Hi, and welcome to another episode of Your Right to Know, brought to you by the Fitchburg Republican City Committee. My name is Attorney Andrew Couture. I will be your host, co-host this evening, and with me, as always, is Mary Lotze. How are you doing tonight, Mary?
I am doing well. Thank you, Andrew.
And tonight we have an extremely special guest, a friend to the FRCC, a friend to Your Right to Know, and a friend to everybody in Massachusetts, Mr. Dean Tran, Senator Dean Tran. How are you doing this evening, Senator?
I'm fine, thank you. And hi, Andrew, and hi, Mary. And thank you for having me with you. And I'm looking forward to having a great show with both of you.
Excellent, and it's always an honor to have you on, sir.
Absolutely.
I'd like to first say that you assumed office of state senator after a special election in 2017. You've been in the job for slightly over 3 years. By every account, you have really been successful, and you have actually shown many of the residents of North Central Mass what a state senator does. You've been completely transparent. You've put yourself out there. You've your Facebook page is constantly active. You make sure that your constituents know what is going on at the State House, unlike anything that we've ever had before. Because of your efforts, the livelihood of the district, as well as the tens of thousands of individuals who live in the district, are being positively impacted. Rather than have our listeners hear me talk about all your accomplishments and your achievements, can you please take a few moments of the show to just show what your accomplishments have been in the past 3 years?
Well, thank you for the kind words, Attorney Couture. You are very correct. And I was elected in a special election in December of 2017 and began serving in 2018 to complete the former senator's term. Then I was reelected in 2018. I'm serving my first full term, and a term is 2 years long. And you're right, I am very proud of my record. I have been very successful because I listen to the people who I represent, and I have worked hard to accomplish their requests. And in just 2 years, Andrew and Mary, I have brought home over $3.2 million in earmarked projects, over 5.5, I would say, correct that, in $5.5 million in project grants. And I secured over $35.6 million in bond projects. On top of that, I helped increase school funding to the highest level, increase funding for police, firefighters, veterans, and seniors, as well as, I took votes to protect your personal and constitutional rights. So given my record in less than 2 years, I am very proud of that. And I know that the people across my district and also across the Commonwealth are very, very excited of the work that I've done.
And one thing, Dean, that I do want to applaud you on is the work that you have done to try to expand the Route 2 corridor. As an attorney, I go all over the state. I have to travel Route 2 quite frequently, and it's a bottleneck. It needs to be redone, and I see you doing the work. And every time I see something that you post about the Route 2 issue, it makes me proud. I have to say, it does make me proud. Following up with that question, the Mass state governance, the Republican Party, let's face it, is a minority party. You are one of 4 Republican senators. How do you get things done when you're only one of 4 Republican state senators, and how do you make a difference when trying to get things done specifically for your district?
I've been very successful is because I use my experience in the private sector. I spent 23 years in the private sector, communicating, interacting with people on all management level. And I use that experience and be able to work with people on the state level. And I can tell you something, everything is so politically driven, and partisanship drives many of the decisions rather than allowing common sense and data to guide our legislation. I have tried very hard to stay calm and level-headed and do what is best for my district about the partisan politics up in Beacon Hill, as long as I am able to serve the people that I represent in my district. And one of the things that you mentioned at the beginning, I am a very transparent person. My life is an open book, and I want my political career to be the same. And that is why I post everything on Facebook to show people what I've done for the district, how I represent the people, and every vote that I take. The legislation that we take up on Beacon Hill, for example, the police reform bill recently that was passed in the Senate. The House also passed its own version, and both bills right now in the conference committee. That legislation was so ridiculous. It was a knee-jerk to address a problem that really doesn't occur in our state. It happens in other states, and further, the legislation devised without all the stakeholders. And with how I manage my work is that when I review or develop a bill, I would like all the stakeholders to be part of that bill. And this legislation, which makes it hard for our responders and all public employees to perform their jobs and jeopardize our public safety, did not invite one of the major stakeholders to the table to devise this legislation. And those stakeholders are first responders. Police, fire, EMS, EMT were not invited to the table to develop that bill. So at the end of the day, I was very proud of the fact that I voted against that bill. It was a nonpartisan group of people who came together, a handful of Democrats, including all 4 Republicans. We voted against that bill. I spoke on it on the Senate floor. And I can tell you one thing, if that bill does not change when it comes out of the conference committee, I will vote against it again.
So, Senator, I mean, you took the courageous stand to support the police, and
yes.
I support the police too. But you and I both have conversations how I have mixed feelings about the bill. I do hope it changes. But what kept you in the fight to support the police?
I'm a very big public safety supporter, and in every profession there are bad apples, and when there are bad apples, we should deal with those apples. We do not create a blanket legislation that would affect everybody and punish the good employees. And this is what happened with this legislation. And to tie it with the partisanship as part of your question, I really don't care that I'm part of the minority up there, because at the end of the day, I will vote to make sure that my district and the people that who I represent are served. And in many times, I have been the lone vote on many bills, and I am proud of those votes.
So our area of North Central Mass have been the recipients of some fairly large federal and state grants. Most recently, one to begin flooding problems and repairs of the John Fitch Highway, which, let's face it, I remember that the John Fitch Highway getting flooded out back when I was a kid in the 80s. So also in Leominster, several hundred thousands of dollars to assess the Monusnock Brook area, which also results in seasonal flooding. In Fitchburg and Leominster alone, over the past several weeks, those grants total almost $500,000 for the cities alone. How do you go about getting money for our district?
Those are some of the many examples that my office and I work closely with the secretariats to advocate for the applications that were submitted by the communities in my district. You know, I am always looking for the dollar sign in every single bill. And I'm always helping to advocate for grant applications submitted by the communities in my district. If I don't bring that money back, it will go somewhere else in the state. So you mentioned Fitchburg and Leominster. Aside from the earmarks that I secured for them, they were also recipients of big projects, including mass work grants in the millions. For example, Fitchburg received $3 million for Main Street and $500,000 for the Westminster renovation. Those results were from, they were resulted from the advocacy, and I have always been the person who, when I see one of my communities apply for a grant, I would do my best to make sure that that application is pushed and to bring that money back to my district, because every project, even regardless where it is located, will have an effect on other communities around it.
Senator Tran, let me ask you, we've talked a lot right now about the three big cities of Leominster, Fitchburg, Gardner, but I know you've also done things for some of the smaller communities that really, I mean, if we as big cities feel we've been left out, I know the small communities really have faced the burden of being left out over the years. What have you done and how have you helped some of the smaller communities in the district? You have, Lunenburg, Sterling, Clinton, Lancaster, Westminster. Please explain the help you've brought to some of those smaller districts.
Bolton and Berlin as well. Great question, Mary. I treat every community in my district the same way. I have interacted with every one of them. I have informed them of the bills and budgets that I work on. If they get back to me, then I can work and advocate for them. I spent 12 years on the city council in Fitchburg, as you know, and I know every penny that the local government receives from the state is a penny not raised through local taxes. So the funds that I bring home to the cities and towns in my district, assist them with their budgets and take the burden off the taxpayers. And that is one of my goals. You mentioned the towns. Of course, towns have to bring every spending article before a town meeting for a vote. And many times they get voted down. So if I can provide them with the funds, they don't have to go through the process. For example, Lunenburg Senior Center HVAC upgrades, I was able to secure $40,000 for them. Townsend Common, Town Commons sidewalk for $70,000. Berlin Council on Aging van for $60,000, or Sterling Recreational Facility improvements for $70,000. If I don't bring these funds home, then the residents and the taxpayers will have to pay for them.
They're increased property taxes in their own towns.
Yes. And that's why many of these towns don't get the opportunity to buy these things.
Mm-hmm. As I listen to you talk about the cities and towns in your district, and I use the term district because technically that's what this is. And yet to me, district sounds a little geographical. It sounds a little governmental. You've chosen the term community, and you've chosen to use the term community, even in your campaign slogan, community first. Community has a sense of being much more personal and personal to you. Was this just, you went through the thesaurus one day and said, okay, what's another word for district? Or is this something that you're pulling out of who you are in your own personal story as you grew up from Clinton to Fitchburg? Is this something more personal when you refer to cities and towns in your district as being community?
Well, my slogan, community first, is because I put the communities first when it comes to voting on a bill or working on a budget. And you are right, it is very personal to me because growing up, the community, the people were there to support my family and I. And now, in my position as a state senator, I use my position and all the power that I have to make sure that the people in my district, all 11 communities, are served. To me, community is people, and I have listened to the people who represent me, and I work for them. I have always been, the funny thing is that uh, recently, when I was reelected in 2018, a friend of mine and a supporter coined me as the people's senator, and I take that very seriously. Politicians nowadays, after they get elected, they forget who they work for, and you know what? Not me. I completely remember who I work for, and I am very loyal to the people that put me in the office, and my record proves it. If you look at my record, it's all about the people. Look at the 48 budget earmarks that I brought home in just 2 years, from funding for a homeless shelter kitchen renovation to funding for Leominster Johnny Appleseed Festival to funding for caring for kids to funding for a dog park, and I can go on and on and on and on.
So you've taken the big projects as well as the little small projects that really impact on individuals, not just communities, but individuals in the communities.
Oh, absolutely. I listen to the elected leaders from all the communities as well as residents down on the ground. They know more about what the community's needs are than the town or city leadership.
Or, yes. Let me ask you, changing topics a little bit. COVID, nobody saw that coming. I mean, it was one day we're all employed and going out to restaurants and living our life very freely, and literally within a weekend, everything was shut down. Um, it's going to have a tremendous impact financially on the state. I was just doing some research, and it's estimated that we'll have a $5 billion shortfall. Estimated taxes coming into the state coffers for 2021 is somewhere in the reduction of 15 to 18%. These are big losses. How do you look at when we're going to get such unexpected revenue shortfalls? How do you go about still balancing and weighing the important things that are prioritized, that you have to prioritize against some of the smaller ones? And then this has to be done statewide, not just within the community or the district that you represent.
Well, we are in a very difficult time right now, Mary. And even before trying to prioritize those issues and the issues that you're talking about, we must need to know the numbers. And, prior to the pandemic, I took part in building one of the strongest economies in the country. Massachusetts had a record low unemployment, record high in stabilization fund.
Yeah, 3.5 billion, I believe.
Correct. And the revenues were exceeding our benchmarks quarter after quarter after quarter. Then the pandemic happened. It was declared in March. Now we have a record high unemployment, and we're looking at maybe $5 to $6 billion shortfall. This will make it very, very difficult for us to craft a budget for fiscal 2021. The Senate is expected to start budget deliberations in October, and we will consider everything, all the revenue numbers, including federal funding. The state stabilization fund is on the table, and we were fortunate because I wouldn't say fortunate, but when the school year began, that was the first priority for us. it was priority for me because I received countless of emails and phone calls from teachers in my district after them receiving the pink slip from being laid off. And I made that a priority. So as a member of the Ways and Means Committee and my colleagues, we came to a consensus that, we need to level fund our schools. And when we say level fund, keep in mind, we have already funded our schools to the highest level ever beginning last year. So when we're level funding this year, we are still at a great
They're
level.
plussed up. Mm-hmm.
Right. And then on top of that, we added a plus inflation. So not only the schools are getting level funded, they're getting an increase in inflation. For example, Leominster, the city of Leominster, the mayor was on the radio show a few days ago. I think it was last week, and he mentioned that level funding education was great for the city, and plus inflation, which translates to the city of Leominster getting over an additional $1 million.
Wow.
So that's great. I was very proud of the fact that I was able to work with my colleagues to make sure that our teachers can go back to work and that they're able to get a paycheck and put food on the table for their families.
Well, I mean, COVID-19 has changed this world like you wouldn't believe. I mean, here we are. We would be in studio right now, yet we're still working from home. I see this also in the court system. We're doing more online. We're doing more via the telephone. We're doing more via Zoom. So is there a silver lining? I mean, we also saw, the disparity between healthcare availability to minorities and culturally diverse groups. And second, telemedicine. I can now bring my daughter to the doctor by simply logging on and having a Zoom meeting with the doctor. As our state senator, are these areas of things that you believe that you can help work on and bring better service to minority and culturally diverse communities, and also continue to enhance and expand the use of telemedicine so more individuals can take advantage of this new way of providing care?
Well, first of all, I hope that when your daughter has something severe like a sprained ankle or a broken leg or something, that you're not using Zoom. But great question, Andrew. The pandemic has terrible impact on everyone, and you are correct that communities of color are being left behind in this challenging time due to the language barriers, especially in healthcare. The legislature is working on a telehealth bill called it's called Putting Patients First. I'm one of the 6 legislators on the conference committee tasked with passing this bill. There are provisions in this bill that focus on marketing, promoting, and providing translation support to the communities of color. So, there's a belief that telemedicine will help address the disparity in healthcare, and I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues on the conference committee and getting this bill finalized so that way it can go before the Senate and the House for a final vote.
Excellent.
So we only have a couple of minutes left and to let Senator Tran know.
Okay. Yeah, we're running short on time. Very quickly, what's on your new agenda? And face the camera and tell our viewers why you should be reelected state senator.
Well, a couple of things that I'm looking forward to do after my reelection is to make sure that Chapter 90 is funded more than it was. I was able to increase it $100 million in the Senate, but unfortunately it didn't pass in the House. That is something I'm going to work on. Chapter 90 is road paving funding for municipalities, and also Route 2. Right. And Route 2, I received a commitment from the governor and the state to do a study on Route 2 for improvements. I was told that it would take me over 10 years to get that commitment. It took me 1.5 years to get that commitment. So I'm going to push that. I'm the only one who will be able to lead that. I'm a ranking minority member, and I sit on 11 committees and currently on 2 conference committees. I believe experience and accomplishments matter in this election. I've worked hard for this district, and the people deserve results. I'm the only candidate in this race who has 23 years of business experience and was responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. I volunteered on several boards and commissions, served 4 years on the planning board, elected to 12 years on the city council, and became the first Vietnamese American elected to the legislature, the first minority elected from this district, and the first and only Asian-born American elected. That is progress, cannot go backward. So I'm the only one experienced in economic development, healthcare, and education, and I can relate to everyone in this district. Again, experience and accomplishments matter. You matter. I'm the only candidate who can represent you. The district is strong under my leadership. So let's continue moving forward with me, and I'm asking for everyone's vote. Thank you.
Dean, we're going to close now, but I personally want to thank you, as well as so many who have veterans in their families and in their lives. And I know you've done so much for veterans. You have been put on this oversight for the veterans' homes after COVID. And so I know your heart is with the veterans, as they are with the blue and the red public servants all over. So as we leave you tonight, thank you for being with us, and thank you, Andrew. This is always a pleasure to be with you all. As we leave you tonight, we want to thank you for watching Your Right to Know, being with us, Fitchburg Republican City Committee, and Your Right to Know. We want you to know that to us, the GOP stands for growth, opportunity, and prosperity for all people, and we always stand for freedom. Thank you, Workers Credit Union, for allowing us this opportunity for freedom of speech. This is the First Amendment, and we like to practice it. Thank you all so much.
America, we stand for freedom. So let us all unite to yearn and strive for our republic that reflects our values, that preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and might, that reflects our values and preserves our rights, and goes forth in power